Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Arangio. Welcome to the latest episode of The Real Deal. As always, I am joined by Dr. Julie Morison, the founder of HPA Live Well. Thanks for being here, Julie.
Absolutely.
Today's a little different because we got a real heavy topic, and it hits really close to home for, not just the News 10 family, but for so many in the Capital Region. And our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to Steve Caparizzo because he lost his wife, Lisa, his beloved, precious wife, who was a driving force behind Pet Connection and really the wind beneath his wings, Julie. And so I reached out to you and I said, I feel like this week's topic has got to be about this and coping with grief and how raw it is and how real it is. And so I really thank you for, taking a little detour here and talking about this more. And I'm not even sure where to begin, to be quite honest, because I'm affected on a personal level, and I know that so many people in our area are affected because Steve has always been very open with our viewers, and he let everybody know eventually, of course, after her passing, what was going on, and had a very heartfelt, raw, emotional video about how much he's struggling right now. There are stages here of grief, right? I mean, in the beginning is just devastation.
Well, the first thing I would say is, one of the protective barriers for him, just in your sort of recollection of how these last couple of days have been, is he's talking a lot and he's willing to share how he feels. And I think that those are two really important sort of protective barriers to developing more, difficult grief that lasts and is debilitating. And I think the work that he's doing just by being honest and reaching out to people will protect him from that.
He seems to be almost judging himself, which I don't know if that's very common for people doing the situation, but he'll say things not just to me, but to others, and also even to the public, like, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. As it turns out, at the time that we're recording this, today is the wake, and tomorrow is the church service. Mm-hmm. And he has expressed to many, including the public, I'm going to do my best, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get through it. Now, I know Cap. He's way stronger than he thinks he is, and I know he's going to get through it. Yeah. But I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how difficult this must be, just even for, aside from him and those who love him, but for the public when they're hurting so much for him, and you feel helpless.
Sure, and it's secondary grief, right? He's got that primary loss, and other people who are surrounding him have that secondary loss. People who maybe have never even met her, but appreciate what she did and the contributions she made. Maybe just respecting him for the contributions he's made to their lives, keeping them safe by knowing, what to expect when they walked out the door in the morning, right? And I think that one of the benefits of being in a community, kind of like ours, they call it small b'nai sometimes, right? Is that, there's only so many degrees of separation. And I think,
good point.
He doesn't have to try real hard to find people who are just a small degree of separation from him and his wife. And people, it's interesting, when there's grief, you see people either run towards or run away. You see the supporters, the people you expected that would be that would show up and be the one that would call and show up and come over and do the things. Sometimes that person doesn't actually do that and they retreat.
Because everybody reacts differently.
And everyone reacts differently, or they're afraid that they don't know how to react, or is my reaction going to be too painful or uncomfortable for him?
Right, what's the right thing to say? I'm sorry, of course, is the first thing. But beyond that, you don't want to offend, and you can't assume that you know what they're feeling, right? That's what's always in my
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing. So first of all, many people have had loss, right? And it doesn't mean that even if everything's relative. So even for people who haven't lost someone super close to them, but lost a pet, or a best friend lost their mother, right? They saw that grief, or a little bit, it's a little bit more distanced or something. They've had something like loss, right? And people can access what that feels like. And so you take a minute and you think about, what would I need to hear? Now, that doesn't mean that that's what he needs to hear. but what would I need to hear? And I think it's not really about the actual words, but the information sort of being sent by those words. The information being sent of, I'm here, I'm present, I see you, I'm here when this initial stuff is done,
Right.
you know, and being willing to really, truly just be present.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody says, I'm sorry. Because you are. It's just, it rolls off your tongue.
Right.
You're just so sorry for that loss. But then, you know, there are some things where what we don't want to do is those who are supporting be sort of calm ourselves down, manage our own grief out loud. So by saying, you know, well, you know, they lived a full life. Okay, but maybe that helped me.
Right.
But that didn't help this person.
Right.
Let them qualify what this was. That's not on you. You can think that that might help you with your aspect of this loss. That might help. So instead, it's really about being present and being able to say, I'm here.
Yeah.
However that needs to be. I like when people say, you know, my heart is with you.
Right.
It's not even just thoughts and prayers. And thoughts and prayers are important, but they also roll off the tongue very similar to I'm sorry. I think saying like I'm in this with you sends a different message.
Can be comforting.
And
again, like you said, every person is different, right? For some people, it's I'm with you. For some people, it's you know I'm
praying.
You know I'm praying for you. You know, again, everyone's different. For me personally, with things I've been through in my past, you know, I'm vocal about it. You know, for me, faith is the only way that I can get from point A to point B. Right. And when there's stuff like this happening, I know for Steve personally, he's mentioned to me, you know, say a prayer, pray for me. So it's on his mind as well. But there are different avenues, like you said. Yeah. People have different things that help them get through it. And that can be tough too. But I think what you said is so critical, because I know that Cap has voiced this, that he's like, you know, and I think he even said this publicly in his video on Facebook. You know, I'm going to need support, and I appreciate all your love. I think he's going to jump back in at some point to Pet Connection, as much as that's going to be really hard right now because Lisa was such a part of it. And, you know, one of the things is that you mentioned like the degrees of separation. They were connected in so many ways because they saved so many animals through Pet Connection. But then Lisa was also so involved in those pets who had very serious needs. Yeah. So, you know, even within the newsroom, even if it wasn't really serious, but something was going on, you know, I'd call her for my dog Hunter. Hey, Lisa, what can I do about that? You know, she always had the answer. She was so knowledgeable and just so caring and supportive. So I think everybody feels the loss in some way. Is it the case where everybody does go through stages of grief? Like, is it pretty common? Like, you know, because I was reading about this, but you and I didn't talk about it. Is it different because we say it's different for different people. So do you run through the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, or not always?
Well, and is it linear, right? So, you know, that was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross years and years and years ago, and it was actually developed as a way of accepting terminal illness. It wasn't actually, but what they were finding was that based in research, it was sort of the actual stages then of true grief after loss. But interestingly, and loss, by the way, does not have to mean death. Loss can mean the loss of, you know, identity, a job, a
boyfriend who's suddenly
anything.
gone.
It's just something that feels like a loss. Yeah. And it creates grief. But what the recommendation is to kind of see that more as fluid, not necessarily it goes from one to the next to the next. You know, of course, what we all want is for people to reach acceptance. You know, ultimately, that's what we want, you know, with anything. Right. I think one of the difficulties around acceptance is people think that they have moments of acceptance where, you know, they're laughing at a party and they haven't in a while, and they're like, "Uh-oh, does that mean I'm okay with this?"
And then is there guilt then?
Sure, there's guilt, absolutely, and there's those additional layers, right, of can I be happy and still miss you? And I think what I would say is, you know, emotions should be kind of seen in a dialectical kind of way, right? That you can be sad and, you know, you can miss someone and also be happy for a few moments. Like those things are allowed. It doesn't mean that they have to be mutually exclusive. That it doesn't mean you're not grieving if you guys are at these gatherings in the next couple of days and somebody laughs, right? That doesn't mean that, you're shortchanging your grief. It just, things go on at the same time, and to give each other some space to be able to do that.
There's so many layers,
There's so many layers, and the denial part is not necessarily this didn't happen. That's what people think, right? Denial. Oh, we didn't have this loss, but rather, it's the idea more so of like, I just still can't believe it.
Oh, shock.
Right? So that's that other end of the acceptance level of like, when I hear you say that, Steve saying, I'm going to need your support. This is him saying, I don't think I can even handle this.
Right.
And that's the other end of acceptance, right? Acceptance doesn't mean I'm okay with it. It just means I understand that this is where I am and my life is going to go on despite this loss. And I think that being able to be present throughout all of those pieces and not judging them and not judging how they go through them.
And I think it's different, like you said. Sometimes there is a loss that, someone else has had that's just like Steve's. So they feel like they truly get it. They lost their spouse too. Similar circumstances, And then there are those who maybe, like you said, it's a friend who lost someone really special, but it hasn't hit them as close. I think that can change how you view it in your mind. But like you were saying, it's so critical for us to never judge because you just don't know what the other person is feeling. So what I'm taking away from this is really the most importantly, and I know we've all been saying it, even the public, is we're here for you. We're here for you, whatever that means.
And I think people are saying we're here for you, and they don't know what that means they need to do. And I think that's what people worry about too.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to talk about how you can help others who are grieving. Is there things that we can do because you do feel helpless, and a little bit about how people often say, "It's not fair. It's not fair."
Yeah.
You hear that so often. So we're going to try to tackle that as we have this kind of tougher topic today. We're back in just a moment with a lot more from The Real Deal. Back now with more on The Real Deal as we're talking about coping with grief in the aftermath of a really tough time for so many here in the Capital Region who have come to love Steve Caparizzo and his wife, Lisa. With Steve losing his wife somewhat unexpected. It was a 10-week illness. She had cancer, but it progressed so quickly, and Cap has said that publicly, so I'm comfortable with sharing that with everybody who's watching today. But, so often people will say, and she's still fairly young, and so, to hear people say, oh, gosh, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no answer to that, but I guess I try to, how do you get past that? Because I guess it's okay to be stuck there. If you're the person going through it, sure. But I feel like so many of the rest of us in the, outer layers may be like, oh, gosh, how awful. It's just not fair. But life isn't fair.
Well, and what would make it fair? It's no different than, a woman that's trying to get pregnant and they see somebody who's got 5 kids and,
What a good
they're
analogy.
letting them walk in the middle of the street. There are things that come up that just don't seem like they belong to you, right? You do everything right and, you think that if I do it right, then it's going to be okay. And I think that those are our ways of controlling the uncontrollable.
There's an added piece to this, too, where when Steve retired from weather, because he's still continuing with Pet Connection, and I believe that he'll be getting back to that at some point, I'm hopeful, that everybody watched as Lisa was with him on that final broadcast, and she was there. And the overwhelming thought and his words were, it is so hard to walk away, but I need more time with my wife now, and she was there for me. She's using the snowblower, taking care of the pets, taking care of her mother-in-law, doing everything while I was, working 24/7 on storms. And so many thought, oh, this is so hard for him not to do weather anymore, but I feel like I can accept this better because now he gets more time with Lisa. and then this so quickly.
Yeah.
That is even more of a punch in the gut, not just to Steve, but I think everyone who's feeling for him now. Like,
Yeah.
he's not going to get that. He
Right.
didn't get that.
Right.
That's people are struggling with that a lot too.
Well, but I think that there's not going to be a great answer to that, and it's one of those questions that you can keep asking, and you're not going to get the answer. And I think that people turn to different things to manage that, right? Some with faith.
Yep.
And for some who are faithful, that makes it easier because faith is literally belief in something that we're not totally sure about, right? There's really
we can't see
we're
it, but
not
we believe
sure, right? And I think that feeling that like this is unfair, there's a lot of things that feel when you've done good that good should happen.
Right.
But at the end, would any end be fair? Would any end be good? In the sense that, I think that, and certainly there are ones that would feel more fair.
Right, sure.
And I think that one of the other things that this does is it scares people. Grief scares people because it makes you worry if it could happen to them.
To me.
How else could that happen? And so they try to understand it differently. Well, how old were they? Well, were they sick? Did they go to the doctor? Those are questions that they're not. Yes, maybe they're interested for these stories specifically, but they're interested for themselves because they need to tell themselves that this isn't going to happen to me because it's too scary.
Because it's so awful. That is really true.
But remember, but what Steve can draw from that is everyone could appreciate how he feels. No one has necessarily specifically been in his shoes, but to feel devastated, to feel fearful, to even someone imagining this loss and they feel, heartbroken, that he is not alone because that there is a universality in the feeling of loss.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. And we have been talking about how some people have been through losses, not the same, but similar, so they feel like they can relate to the types of feelings he's going through, which is why it can hurt so much. Others just like, oh gosh, I hope that never happens to me. Others are like, oh shoot, something somewhat similar happened to me. And it's really tough at the beginning, but plenty of people have been commenting on Facebook like, look, it is really, really tough. They don't say like, oh, it's going to be better in 5 minutes. No one is saying that.
Right.
No one is saying that. But people are saying, I hear you and I understand what you're going through. I think one of the things that Steve even mentioned is, he's like, I know people tell me that time will make it a little bit easier. And again, it's one of those things that you may be trying to be helpful by saying that, but I would think that that's really hard for someone who just lost someone to hear.
Right,
like,
so that doesn't meet somebody
what?
right where they are because remember, you're talking about he's here and that comment is down
place.
here.
Right.
Right, that comment is about acceptance. So instead, right now the message is, I see you.
Yeah.
I'm here. I think people who haven't had loss don't know what to say if they're going to go to the wake and they have to, see him and what to say. And you share stories about her. You are present for her. You give him space to do the same thing. No one is going to make him not hurt.
Exactly.
No, and it's no one's job to do that. And he's not asking for that from anyone. When he's, but one thing that everyone can do is remind him of who he is, right? That he exists outside of all of this, that he is still somebody that people will turn to, people will appreciate, going out for coffee, right? For example, you don't have to go out and have coffee and then just say, hi, oh my gosh, how are you doing with this?
Right.
Also, what do you think about this, with my dog? What about this? Like all the things that they know about, he's invested in, to remind him that he is who he is still.
Exactly.
Because that's what makes him feel like his life will still go on because he doesn't know right now what his life is without this.
I know. And then I feel like he does. Like, and again, this is just me, maybe as someone who, knows him personally, but he does know. He's just obviously in such a devastated place right now. But I just, in my experience with Steve, because the passion is so strong, because he couldn't leave Pet Connection behind before. Yeah, right now it hurts too much. It hurts too much. But I think at some point, for Lisa, and not just Lisa, because he had this passion himself. I mean, I like to think that he's going to find his way, but he's just not there yet, and nobody can rush that. That's here.
That's the acceptance
He's here.
part. And right now, all of us who watch him uncomfortable want him down here because
Exactly.
because it's hard to see someone sad.
Oh.
It is very hard to see someone sad, to
Gut-wrenching.
struggle, and to feel like you're going to have to just be sad.
Right. And I
can't rush you
fix
through it. I can't rush you through it. What people can know is that he will be down here because of all of the things that he's built, and the relationships still exist, and all of those things, and he'll get down there.
Yeah.
But it's no one's job to make him go down there.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And this is going to be his stages, right? I think the bigger thing, if people really want to know what they can do, is that remember
How to help.
these next 2 days will be hard. But after those 2 days, he's going to still need to know and remind himself that that church was so full, or, you know, how many people, like, that.
Look at all the
that
love.
this,
Look at all
like,
the lives she touched.
Just because then everybody went to work the next day or whatever doesn't mean that this didn't just happen, and that they're still with him. So again, like, you know, I'm with you. You have my heart with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those things. And because he's faithful, you can say you're, you know, in my prayers for people
Absolutely.
who, if they weren't, you know, you would sort of be more general about it, because you're, you know, because what works for you is not necessarily somebody else's. You don't want to qualify to say, I know how you feel, I understand. Those are risky things to say, because no one can understand anybody's true experience when it comes to this.
It's different for everyone.
And so you're sort of non-committal in that way. You can only comment on yourself, which is that I'm here.
And that's the key thing that we continue to say. And I know, you know, what I can compare it to is just that I'm watching my father, even though it's 3 years later, but watch those stages for him when we lost my mom, right? So in my mind, I still call my father every single day. And I really feel like there's a period of time here where I'm just going to reach out to Cap with a text, you know, every day. It's just like, I'm thinking of you. I'm here. I'm here. I just want him to know that I'm here. And I know so many others are doing that, and we're all saying that. For those who feel, you know, they don't know him personally, they want to do something, there's already been so many people have been so kind, and that means everything to him to donate. In fact, he's asked for that in his writing of the obituary, that if you want to donate to Pet Connection, one of close friends of the station, Andrew Polano, has raised a lot of money for him as well. He's a young man with special needs who's a self-advocate who took Steve under his wing, and now he's raising all this money for Lisa and for Pet Connection and for different causes. So that's the way I think that some people feel better. Maybe it's for themselves, but they feel like this is how I can support Steve. If Steve's saying, hey, this is a way to keep Lisa's memory alive, then that's something you can do for Steve.
Absolutely. And that's measurable. People feel like they need something measurable in the face of something that's out of their control.
Yeah. So there is like a little...
And let's also remember there are other people that are going to hear this story, and they're in the midst of anticipatory grief. You know, someone in their family maybe is unwell, or they're afraid of, you know, those things that this dials up in a lot of worry and concern and sadness for other people. It reminds others of losses they've already had.
Right.
And so, you know, with such a public figure in our community struggling, let's just sort of keep our eye out for each other right now, right? People you know that have had loss, people who you know are anticipating loss, people who just watching him be sad it overwhelms them. You know, everybody just take a breath and take a beat and pick your head up and just, you know, be present.
Thanks so much for talking with us about this today. And of course, all of us are thinking so much of Steve in the days, the weeks, the months ahead. And rest assured, there will be plenty of people there for Steve. Plenty of people. I want others to have solace in that he is not going through this alone. And you know, and we can't rush it for him, right? He's got to take his time with it. But such an important conversation with everyone at some point. We'll be down this road in a different way.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us today, Julie. And we're going to have much more from The Real Deal next time, but that's all the time we have.